Hey there, it's Major Anxiety. It's been a while since we've worked on this series, and I apologize for that. Lots has changed in the game, multiple updates, and patch 1.9 beta is out. And frankly, I'm really excited to try to play that because it's basically got all the content for the release, which is coming October 25th. Before we can do that, though, we need to finish up this story. And so, after reviewing the goals at the beginning of this series, we were doing a trader mercenary playstyle, and the logical ending point for a series there would be to get to level 300 trade, where you have the perk everything has a price, and we could buy a town as a base of operations. From the comments I've received on the videos, seems that some folks really don't like the engaging gameplay of trading and that sort of a play style. So I get it. Frankly, as I was playing it, I was getting a little bored myself. So this will be a pretty short video. I'm going to just show you the highlights. I did a lot of horse trading offline to get to the 300 trade perk, and then we'll go shopping for a town. I'd like to thank all my subscribers who stuck around during this hiatus and the new ones that have joined us. Our next series will be based on version 1.9. Many of the impediments from my personal story are no longer in the way, and winter is coming, so I should have more time to dedicate towards doing a more comprehensive series. But for now, let's finish this one up. As you can see, we're currently at $2.99 trade. I have plenty of horses to sell. Been buying them in volume. And as we go to the nearest town to sell these, we should have enough to reach level 300. In earlier versions of the game, you only needed to get to like level 275, which was much easier than getting to this point and having to max this out, because the points come few and far between. You have to do a lot more trading in the late game to get to 300. So we're currently unaffiliated. We're not a mercenary. I kind of ducked out of those arrangements so that I could trade all over the map. And while I said I've been doing horses, I've also been doing a number of other things. Massive amounts of food, taking it from places where it's cheap and moving it to places where I could see castles and towns being sieged. And if the siege is done in the towns, I was popping in and making stuff for a pretty good profit. In general, as you go later in the game, pack animals, which are really profitable early, become less and less so, and you have to focus on the higher level mounts. But depending on the battles that the various factions are fighting, they can still be profitable even at this point. So I'm going to sell as many of these as I can, get a decent profit. And that should put me at 300. I'm still going to grab some food and have a lot on hand, because I'm going to want it when I do buy a town. If I don't have a governor of the right faction, then they could be dissatisfied. And so I want to have a stockpile of food that I can load in to help stabilize the economy. The last thing I want is to have a rebellion right after I take it. So you can see I've hit level 300 here. I take the final perk, which is very hard now. And let's figure out a town that we can buy. So to buy a town, you need to find the owner and then strike a deal with them. Because of all the wars going on, that can be a little bit difficult because they're either in an army somewhere or they're, as I ran into, most of the owners were captured and in jail, and they won't interact with you and sell when you're in jail. So I went shopping around until I could find a town owner that was not in jail, and found Baron Perrick traveling with this army, and he's the Lord of Ostrakhan. So I figured, let's see what he wants for that. Having a fief in the Dryatic kingdom, since that's my heritage, would be good. But he wanted over 3 million and a ton of really good horses and things. I have 3 million in cash, so this just was way too expensive. I wouldn't even be able to support my army. So we'll find another one. So I tracked down Imperator Belethor of the Empire. He was the owner of a couple of towns, and I wanted to see if he would sell Ep11, which he would, but again, for 3 million dinars, which is pretty much my whole bankroll. So checking on the price of Jamaris, I found that I actually could afford this. It would take most of my money, but I decided to buy it. I'd still have enough money to, get a garrison, and increase the construction of things that might need to be improved. And at this point in my trading empire, it's not all that difficult to make money. The only drawback of this particular town is it only has 2 attached settlements, so it can be a little harder to make money, but it is centrally located. It's right next to the Azerite territory, the Dryatic kingdoms, as well as many of the Imperium areas as well. So if I stay neutral and I can still trade with all of these neighbors, which is, for this type of playthrough, is not a bad way to approach it. So you can see the food was a little sparse in here, which is why I had bought a bunch beforehand. Many of the projects were already at level 3, so that was good. I was hopeful to find a companion to be governor that had the same ethnicity, so that I could get the loyalty up a little easier. I didn't really have one, so I took Elise, my wife, made her the governor. She had the strongest governor perks to start with, so. Then, in order to increase the security of it and make it defensible, I offloaded some of my better troops in there to beef up the garrison. With security taken care of, I still had a problem with loyalty and food, which actually food shortages contribute to loyalty, so I decided to offload some of my goods in there to help. In addition to providing food for the town, which helps, also putting some materials in there and selling what I can afford to sell right now would give me some income to buy more food. So I traveled to the nearby town of Zenica to see what they had for sale. They had a ton of grain available and grapes, so I bought all they had on hand and wanted to run those back to Jalmaris. The strategic positioning of Jalmaris in close proximity to a number of other towns really helps in doing this. So I offloaded the majority of my grain, grapes, and olives, keeping enough to keep my army happy and fed, and was prepared to go to the other nearby towns if need be. And then it was a matter of staying in the town, waiting for a couple of days, just to see if the goods that I brought in had the desired effect, plus the additional security of having me present as the clan leader. And lo and behold, the food situation was resolved. We still have a loyalty issue. The garrison's increasing, prosperity's increasing, security is staying the same. We did gain 1 point in loyalty by fixing the food issue. That's one of the problems you have with a town that only has 2 feasts that are associated with it. So the queue for projects were left over from what Belethor was prioritizing. Of course, he was the same faction, heritage. So I decided to change these around, take some out of the queue, stop construction on the training fields, and go with festivals and games as the default, the daily default, which definitely would help out on the loyalty issue. So as you can see, changing that, I went from -4 to -1 now. A much better situation with the town's less likely to rebel. To get that last point of loyalty, either my spouse or whoever I choose as governor should ideally be the same faction as the town at the start of the game. So I could go find a companion of the right heritage and install them as governor and take care of that. But for this series, Duras Anarti and his clan have found a home, right at the crossroads of many kingdoms. From here, he would raise his children and build his fortune. A fortune which he would use to rid the lands of the Imperium. With that, we'll put an end to this series and get ready to move to version 1.9. Probably use the normal factions with no mods, but I want to check out some of the new features that have been instituted in Bannerlord since this 1.7 version. I'm particularly interested in player death, which will give another level of realism to the game. So once again, sorry for the delay in finishing this up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the release version.